This is not how I wanted the world to meet my son, but here we are. Nolan is the kindest soul. He never met a stranger. He loved everybody. He didn't care if you were black, white, purple, green, looked like a marshmallow. Like, he just wanted everyone to be in peace with one another.
What if the one thing that could tell us what really happened to Nolan Wells, his own phone, was already empty by the time anyone got to look at it? Welcome to True Crime Case, where we go past the headlines and into the details that actually explain what happened. Every case has a beginning. This one begins on a boat, on a holiday, with a group of friends who all expected to come home together. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why one detail about that phone, a detail almost nobody's talking about, might matter more than the argument everyone online is focused on. Nolan Xavier Wells is 18 years old, a wide receiver at Southwest Mississippi Community College, home in Ocean Springs for the summer, already looking ahead to another football season. People who know him describe the same thing over and over. He's the one who never lets a moment pass without capturing it. A photo, a video, a caption. If something happened in his day, there's proof of it somewhere, because that's just who he is. On the 4th of July, Nolan joins a group of high school friends for a trip out to Horn Island, a stretch of undeveloped wilderness off the Mississippi Gulf Coast. 4 square miles of sand dunes and pine trees, no docks, no shelters, no cell service once you're far enough from the mainland, and packed that day with well over 100 people and boats scattered along the shore. Sometime around 3 or 4 in the afternoon, Nolan is last seen near the water. His friend's boat pulls away, heading back toward the mainland, without him. By every account gathered since, he chose to stay behind, with the understanding he'd catch a ride back later with someone else. On its surface, it sounds like the kind of small decision that happens on trips like this all the time. A missed boat, a later ride, nothing more. Except Nolan doesn't come home that night, and by the time his mother's phone starts ringing, well after dark, the story of what happened on that beach has already started splitting into versions that won't agree with each other for days. Around 11 o'clock, the Coast Guard receives a phone call from one of Nolan's friends. What was actually said on that call has never been released publicly, and the Coast Guard has only confirmed that no rescue response was requested at the time. That silence is its own kind of unanswered question, because it means somebody knew enough that night to call for help, and we still don't know what they told them. Around that same hour, Christine Wansley gets a different call, from a different friend, asking if she's heard from her son. She hasn't. She assumes he's still with the group. He isn't. The friend tells her they left the island hours earlier, and that Nolan stayed behind to talk to a girl he'd met that day. By midnight, Christine has called the Jackson County Sheriff's Office. Her son is officially missing. Somewhere in those early hours, before anyone knows whether Nolan is alive, Christine opens an app on her own phone, Life 360. She tracks his device, and it isn't on the island at all. It's already sitting at a friend's house, back on the mainland. Her son is still unaccounted for. His phone is not. Hold on to that detail, because what she finds when she finally gets that phone back in her hands later is going to change how you see everything that happened before it. What follows is a search assembled almost overnight. The Coast Guard issues an urgent marine broadcast and sends a helicopter. Jackson County deputies bring in a state agency, the National Park Service, and a volunteer search group called the United Cajun Navy, civilian boat owners who mobilize for exactly this kind of search. For 2 full days, they work the water and shoreline around Horn Island, while a family waits for a phone call no parent wants to receive. While that search was underway, we were already pulling every official statement to build this timeline, which is why you can trust what comes next. Subscribe if you want to be here when the next update on this case drops. Monday morning, 2 days after he was last seen, a National Park Service ranger locates Nolan near the northwest tip of the island. He's identified through dental records. The swim trunks matched what he was last seen wearing. A search for a missing teenager becomes something else entirely. In the days that follow, Jackson County Coroner Bruce Lind tells reporters there were no immediate indications of injury, and notes the currents at that end of Horn Island have a documented history of being unpredictable and hazardous. That statement is narrow. It describes a physical exam. Online, it gets read as something else entirely, as the case being closed. Sheriff John Ledbetter has to clarify publicly that no apparent injury is not the same as ruling anything out, and that the investigation remains open while a full autopsy and toxicology results are pending. It's around this point that the family finally receives Nolan's phone back. According to attorney Ben Crump, Nolan's friends had taken it with them when they left the island, apparently intending to return it to him later. Here's what still hasn't been explained. No one has publicly said which friend actually carried that phone off the island, how it ended up at the specific house Christine's tracking app located, or why it took as long as it did to get back into the family's hands. That gap in custody, phone leaves the island with someone, phone sits at a house, phone eventually reaches the family with messages already gone, is one of the most specific unresolved details in this entire case, and it's the piece almost no one covering this story has pressed on directly. When it's finally returned, messages have already been deleted. Christine and her sister go through what remains, focusing on Snapchat, the platform Nolan used constantly. They find nothing. No saved photos, no snaps from that day at all. And this is the detail that won't sit still. They open the phone before the 24-hour window closes, the window after which unsaved content disappears permanently on its own. If anything had been there, it should still have been recoverable. It wasn't there to recover. By every account, Nolan was the one who documented everything. An entire day with friends, and the one surviving device from it holds nothing at all. But an empty phone isn't the only inconsistency in this case. There's a second contradiction, one involving two of Nolan's own friends, and it might be the most important detail in this entire story. One friend, whose own mother is a local judge, says publicly that Nolan told the group directly he wanted to stay. Another teenager who was there tells the family's legal team the opposite, that Nolan actually planned to leave with everyone else. Two accounts. Two directions. Someone in that friend group is remembering or describing that afternoon incorrectly, and it hasn't been resolved. Around this same time, a video from that day begins circulating online. Viewers claim it captures the sound of an argument involving Nolan. Asked directly whether she hears her son in it, Christine says she genuinely can't tell, and that the way it's filmed makes it impossible for her to confirm he's even in frame. Crump, in public statements, has gone further, saying he can make out Nolan's voice demanding his phone back. That gap is exactly what pulled Reverend Al Sharpton into this story next. By now, an independent autopsy, funded in part by former NFL quarterback Colin Kaepernick, is underway in Washington, D.C., separate from the state autopsy already completed, but not yet released. Filmmaker Tyler Perry steps in to help cover funeral costs. This is the moment a family's private grief becomes a national story. Christine and Elmore travel to New York and stand at a press conference beside Sharpton and Crump, calling publicly for what they describe as a transparent investigation. Sharpton says the explanations given to the family don't add up. Crump points to the friend group itself, noting that in the photos and video from that day, Nolan appears to be the only black person present, or very close to it, and ties that detail to a history in Mississippi of cases involving young black men whose deaths were never fully explained. If this timeline unsettles you the way it's unsettled us, you're not alone. This isn't a family asking anyone to assume the worst. It's a family asking for an account of events that actually holds together, and right now, they don't have one. If you want to help this reach more people who might know something, drop a like before you go. In the interviews that follow, Christine is asked directly whether she thinks race may have played a role. She says she doesn't want to believe it did, but that she can't ignore the patterns she's seen in cases like this before. She's asked, too, whether she worries her son trusted people too easily. She says yes. It's something she and Nolan's father used to talk to him about, growing up. A small detail, set against everything else in this timeline, but it says something about who he was underneath all of it. Both parents describe him the same way, as someone with an enormous capacity for kindness. Here's where things stand, and here's the payoff on that phone detail we asked you to hold on to. Nobody has ever named who physically carried Nolan's phone off that island, or explained how it traveled from wherever he was last seen to the specific house it was eventually tracked to. That gap has never been closed publicly, and it sits right alongside the question of who's telling the truth about whether Nolan planned to stay or planned to leave. Sheriff Ledbetter continues to ask anyone who was on Horn Island that day, and there were reportedly over 100 people there, to come forward with anything that might fill these remaining gaps. The state autopsy sits completed, its results still withheld. The independent autopsy remains pending, and when Christine is asked, weighed against everything in this timeline, whether she believes her son simply drowned by accident, her answer is honest. She doesn't know how to answer that. Too much still doesn't line up, starting with a phone that told her nothing, and ending with two friends whose stories never will. We'll return the moment either autopsy is released, and we'll walk through exactly what it means, not what's loudest online. Subscribe now, and comment below if you want us to notify you the second that update goes live. This one isn't over. Cases like this one, the kind we build this true crime documentary series around, only make sense in order, hour by hour, not jumped to at the ending. So here's what we're left with. Somewhere on that island, someone knows exactly what happened on that beach. What would it take for that person to come forward?